As always, the final topic of the day is brought to you by you. You can go to kindoffunny.com/Gamescast topic, leave us some questions, just like Antonio Lara did.
Antonio Lara.
He says, why can a game be huge in Japan but nowhere else?
Oh, that's a great question. I think because things roll out differently. It's the same reason a game could be huge in America and be huge nowhere else, because things roll out differently and cultural presuppositions are sometimes tailored toward certain things. I mean, the fact is that in Japan, the history of the way RPGs rolled out on console kind of created a myth that RPGs were more popular in Japan than the United States. No, we were just all playing ours on computer for a very long time. I mean, RPGs were literally invented in the United States on pen and paper, became successful on computers, were the earliest examples of video games, created the home gaming market. Then in Japan, people started playing on computers, but consoles blew up at a time that our console industry was in a slump. So it became popular on console there, and it took a while for us to catch up. That was simply a historical cultural nuance based on the fact that there was a video game market crash in 1983 and 84 here in the console space, but not the PC. Did I explain that at all, or was that really confusing?
I love you.
Nailed it.
Okay, I'm a little worried about that. I was afraid that I was ranting. So what I'm saying there is sometimes factors of history within a country. Countries exist for, things happen in one country that don't happen in another economically and historically. That changes things tremendously. In 84, and the American console industry was collapsing, Japan's prospered. Therefore, RPGs prospered on console at a time that they would have otherwise here, but never got the chance to. Took years for us to catch up. Because of that, we missed out on the beginnings of popular franchises like, let's say, Dragon Quest. We almost missed out on Final Fantasy. So there's one. I mean,
cultural differences too, right? Especially talking about Japan, especially talking about Monster Hunter, which did in the last topic, right? I noticed something, obviously I love Vita now and I loved PSP back in the day, and that was like my beat at IGN PlayStation. And I remember when somebody pointed out to me that all my reviews mentioned being on the train, because I took the train into work, and like that's not what most of America does, and that's why handhelds have such a hard time getting going here. Meanwhile, in Japan, they were always ahead of us on handhelds, and then they were way tip of the sword on phone games, because everybody, like, you're all packed in together in Tokyo. You're so on top of each other. You're all taking trains.
There are 30 million people in the Tokyo metropolitan area. A quarter of the population of Japan lives in one city and the surrounding suburbs. Imagine that. It'd be in the United States. To take our population, a quarter of our population would be about 75 million. So it'd be like having a city of 75 million people, all of whom were commuting to work on public transit. We do not have that. Therefore, these things didn't work. Yeah, that's a great point, Greg. That's crazy.
Like when you were talking about Monster Hunter and people in McDonald's and all that stuff. I remember how mind-boggling it was. Like the first time I said to Mike P when I was doing Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, and I was like, "Do you want to have like a date and go out and play this?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then Caleb came and we went to a bar and we were sitting at a bar drinking beers, playing PSP, and I'm like, "This is awesome." And no one else in that fucking bar in this fucking city was doing that, because that's not who we are and that's not how we communicate through games.
And then you go to Europe. You think about what happened in the European game industry. They started on microcomputers, and a lot of those were domestically designed microcomputers. There was a period of history for about 10 years when people were figuring out what home computers were going to be. Most of them were built on two common architectures. A few others. They were usable on the 6502 or the Z80, two different chips, because those were cheap and easy to program for in assembly language. And people tried all kinds of variants around those chips. In Britain, they invented several really brilliant economical designs at a time that Great Britain was in a major economic slump. And so these cheap home computers became kind of a way for video games to infiltrate the home, usually on cassette tape. They clung to cassette tape longer than we did over there. And their games they cost much less than they did here in that format. A cassette tape there might cost half what a video game cost here at the time. So it created a market for this kind of, okay, well, what are our considerations? It has to run on these processors, has to use this very limited graphical palette, has to fit on a cassette, and needs to be able to load in something less than 10 minutes. So how do we make that, because those cassette loaders they were terribly slow. That created a certain kind of game, and the games that they first fostered in that technical innovation, then those were iterated on to create new, you think about the things that Rare did. They made their name making games on toasters. The British microcomputers were not inferior to ours, but they weren't particularly powerful, and these guys were finding ways to just squeeze the last drop of performance out and create these cool isometric exploratory games like Night Lore, for example, that things that never came over here, really never became popular, but are genres there that dominated for half a decade or longer, just because they were homegrown, readily available, and worked on what was out there. And I think that's where a lot of these changes come from.
That was an excellent answer. Papa P says, what's the importance of Miss Pac-Man?
Miss Pac-Man is arguably the best arcade game there is. I'd vote for Robotron 2084, but Miss Pac-Man's right up there along with Galaga. It's one of the few arcade sequels that's just decidedly better than its predecessor. That's very unusual because arcade games are all about a cool hook, or at least most arcade games are. But Miss Pac-Man takes the cool hook and improves on it in every way. The randomizer makes the game unpredictable. It makes it so that you can't just pattern Miss Pac-Man out. The fact that the mazes change up make you responsible for 4 times the information management that you were in the original Pac-Man. The variable fruit randomization, particularly when you get to higher levels, adds this wonderful spice because you just have to go after fruit. The ghost behaviors are very smartly covered. It's good. It's good industrial design. I mean, the cabinet looks great. The beautiful, the pink and blue aesthetic there together. The fact that project began life as a kind of hack, it was sort of an add-on daughter card board for Pac-Man that wasn't exactly officially licensed to start and then later was. It's a very cool story. I got a chance to talk to one of the guys that did this once, and fascinating, just a wonderful, cool process. Long story. Anyway, all those factors feature in, but at the same time, it's instantly understandable what you're trying to do. It doesn't screw up what worked in Pac-Man. It just improves on it. Also, it can easily, with a simple 1-bit mod switch, be made much faster than even Miss Pac-Man. And I believe that Turbo Miss Pac-Man is the definitive way to play. And man, when you get up to those higher levels, there is nothing more riveting or terrifying in all of the video game world than when you get to the part of Miss Pac-Man where the stages just keep going, the power pellets never work again, and you're just trying to stay alive long enough for that random banana to show up so you can improve your score. I'm not a particularly good Miss Pac-Man player. 2019 640 is my top score, and that's like not all that great. But even at that low level, like the later levels are just devastating and wonderful.
So I was picking the questions for this show, and full transparency, I was like, I know Jared's gonna be fucking great. He's gonna kill this shit. I was like, I don't know what his role with, like, what he thinks about Miss Pac-Man. I'm just gonna throw it out and see.
It's funny you say
God damn.
It's funny you say that too, because I think on the exclusive that we did, which Patreon exclusive subscribers for Kind of Funny Games can listen, we talked about Miss Pac-Man and Galaga and why those games are so important as well. So you guys can go listen to that if you are a Patreon subscriber.
I need to listen to that because, my God, you are the most fascinating.
I've been playing Miss Pac-Man a lot lately.
world.
It's so funny. Like we were talking about that. I've been playing Miss Pac-Man a lot lately because that game is so fucking good. It's so sublime. It is so perfect. That game is fucking perfect.
Are you
really
playing
is.
Regular or sped?
Oh no, I'm playing regular. I'm playing I'm playing the Namco port on PS4, which costs like $3 or whatever. And you can like mess with it in all sorts of ways, but I play it pure, and that game is just that game is really, really good. It's just a really, really good.
Started with an MIT student business. Miss Pac-Man was just a bunch of people trying to find a way to make Pac-Man a little better, and it was a bunch of MIT students that decided to quit school and go into business.
And it's funny how much better Miss Pac-Man is than Pac-Man. Like when you think about Pac-Man, you are talking about Miss Pac-Man. You are not talking about Pac-Man. Like you are not talking about it. You know, like everyone knows you're talking about Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Yep. Even if you don't know you're talking about it.
Yep. Pac-Man CE forever. Woo!
Oh yeah. CE2 comes out in September.
Yeah!
Which is
That's going to be
awesome.
crazy.
I love that game.
That was a fun announcement.
CE is so good.
It is.
So good.
Steven Oslin says, what game is Jared looking forward to for the rest of the year?
Oh, wow. That's great. No Man's Sky.
It's so imminent.
Yeah, No Man's Sky.
Yeah, that's like 2 weeks.
I know.
Yeah, that's got me worked up. I'm real excited to see how No Man's Sky turns out. I think that's going to I can't predict if that's going to fly into the stratosphere or crash and burn. I don't know if we're about to get Minecraft or Spore. But I'm hoping for Minecraft. For me, it's
Have you played it yet?
No, I haven't played it yet.
See, the thing, Kevin and I always talk about it. We've played it.
Yeah.
And so our expectations are set based on that, and we're in.
Okay.
But it's going to be interesting to see the internet, whose expectations are up here, that we're going to have a galactic council.
Sony did that to the game.
I know.
But you're in? You're in?
Oh, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's a game
Kev,
about...
you in? Big Dog Kev, you in?
What's up, Ross? Yeah.
How about you just yell, Kev? Kevin's saying he's in.
Kevin's in. Are you in, Colin?
Not. I want to see. Like I think
You haven't played it,
that Sony has mucked this game up significantly in terms of expectations, and I think that the expectations are not going to be met with this game. I don't think it's possible.
I agree 100%.
So I think that it's going to injure the game in a major way. But I still think that it's going to do fine. I just don't think it's going to set the world on fire at all.
Yeah, I'm not in at all, and I think that the hype thing is definitely there, but in total opposite way, like with Last Guardian, there's the hype there, but I'm in that, and I think that is going to be good.
I keep forgetting the game exists.
This doesn't like grab my attention really. I think that it's very pretty and very cool, but like I'm like, all right, I'd rather just listen to a synth soundtrack and just watch this happen than play it. So far, I'm very interested to see. Maybe I change my mind once I get my hands on it, but I'm not excited for it at all. But I'm happy that it's so close. I'm finally gonna know.
I want to wander the stars. I don't need a goal. I just want to wander. I just want to travel through the space. I could do that for. It's a dream come true.
Then I think you're going to be very happy because I imagine that is what this is going to be.
I hope so. I hope it's awesome. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's game of the year. I don't know.
Robert White says, Jared, what are some of your favorite obscure games?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know if it's obscure, but it's an obscure port. My all-time favorite video game is the NES port of Sid Meier's Pirates, programmed by Rare, released by Ultra, which was Konami in the United States. And while Pirates is a superb computer game, that particular port of Pirates is so smooth. It strips out a couple of features that I didn't care about anyway, but the sword fighting and ship combat is way less choppy than it is on most computer platforms, and yet it doesn't have like the over adornment that later things like Pirates Gold or the remake had, and I don't have to worry about the DDR dancing or any of that. The map is perfectly synced to it. I've probably played that game for 1,000 hours. I think that port is a wonderful thing, and I think a lot of people never even realized it was on NES. It was a breakout hit on PC, but console ports were not that big a deal for Pirates. So that's one that comes to mind. Geez, obscure. I don't know. I guess Angband's probably obscure, and I really enjoy Angband, which is there are two kinds of roguelikes. There's the kind of puzzly based roguelikes like NetHack, where you're just trying to you're trying to survive and you're trying to solve very specific procedurally generated, but still always going to pop up in some way mysteries. And then there's combat roguelikes, where you're just trying to get to the bottom and kill the big monster that lives in the basement. Angband is the king of those. And as much as I enjoy experiences like Torchlight 2 or Diablo 2, Angband is probably my favorite of that kind of go to the bottom and kill the big bad. That's one that comes to mind. I don't know. I don't really classify games in my head as obscure, and so it's harder to draw from the bin there.
I mean, I think you gave some great answers.
Okay.
Madden 08.
Julio says, Jared, do you have any favorite video game soundtracks?
Yeah. Whole soundtracks or just tracks? Let's do
Take it
tracks.
as you will.
The first video game track I ever remember just being stunned by, I think, is probably Opening Corridor in the Guardian Legend, when the wood flutes come in. That's a compile game and therefore superb, because compile makes great games. Even Golvelius is good, which is weird. But Guardian Legends Opening Corridor music now probably doesn't sound all that impressive, but I was like, I didn't know those kinds of sounds could come out of an NES. And as a child, I remember like crashing my plane, my jet, because I just wanted to hear the music and I couldn't pay attention to the game. That one really knocked me on my butt. To this day, Matoya's Cave gets me, which is from Final Fantasy 1, in just about any rendition. Let's see, there's a few others. Home Sweet Home from Earthbound is that bum bum dun 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 dun. So just lovely like that. Oh goodness. There's too much good game music. I think Last Ninja 2 for C64 sounds like it's the SID chip had 3 voices, and this sounds like a 16-piece orchestra. It's one of the most clever pieces of like mod scene sound program I ever heard. Also on the C64, the Bionic Commando soundtrack. The Bionic Commando port for C64, which is based on the arcade game, not the NES game, is absolute crap, but the music is ungodly good, like just down to the point that they're doing all this weird, Eurosynth stuff, and they like noodle around at the top, and like suddenly like the piece of the Star Wars music comes in for one bar, and you hear it in the middle of the Bionic Commando music, and then they cut back in, but it fits perfectly, and it's just like down 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 da da down 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 down, and then it cuts into Bionic Commando, and you're like, what? This is so good. There's a lot of that.
Man, that is awesome. Final question is from Juan Cazares. He says, ask Jared if he ever sees any game company making a deeply religious game.
Oh, wow. I mean, people have done things. They've never been commercially successful to my mind. You had the Wisdom Tree stuff and all that, of course.
Bible Adventures and stuff.
Yeah, Bible Adventures.
Dude, Binding of Isaac.
Binding of Isaac is thematically. That's a really, really good point there, Colin. There's
Binding of Isaac couldn't even come to Nintendo platforms because it was too religious.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Binding of Isaac comes to mind. There's a game called, I think it's 10 Second Jesus or 10 Second Gospel, something like that. I think a Games Jam game of some kind made in like a couple of days, but it's like doing everything in the life of Christ in 10 seconds. The controls are like run right and do Jesus things. And it's so cute and clever that it gets a couple little points across in interesting ways. Religion is one of those things. It's one of the great divides in video gaming. I think some of that has to do in the United States with the fact that religion is, it's that Nintendo legacy, and people have been afraid to touch it ever since. And people are afraid of alienating their audience, or they're trying to pander to it. I mean, a lot of video games that have gone down that road kind of do it like Cecil B. DeMille did with the Ten Commandments. That movie, which people forget is one of the greatest exploitation films ever made. That was a movie about getting Christians into theaters to watch sex and violence. I mean, that movie is all about like, I am Vincent Price and I am swarmy and you will be my maidservant. Come into my home. Joshua, and it's all murder and filth and disguised as a Bible movie, so people would go see it, and they put Charlton Heston on it, and suddenly it was like, hello, I'm Moses and God is good. Nah. Games treat religion at best like that most of the time. I'm racking my brain right now looking for something better. I'm waiting for us to get something like, you guys ever played A Mind Forever Voyaging?
No.
Okay, it's an old Infocom game from the text adventure days. It's astounding. It lays aside years before adventure games were laying aside puzzles. It lays aside almost all the traditional puzzle mechanics. You play as an AI in a South Dakota laboratory. You're a computer on a rack against a wall. There's a lab technician in the lab with you. You've been built to create simulations within yourself that you then travel into of what the future of America might be like if we make certain decisions politically. And so you're traveling through time within yourself, then coming back every now and then and talking to the professor about what the simulation taught you about what might happen if you do this. And you keep going farther and farther into this future. And as you come out, you realize outside the room that you're trapped in, things are happening in the real world based on the data you're feeding them that are influencing the course of American history. And eventually you're having this kind of existential dilemma where which world, the world inside yourself or the world outside, which one is the real one, or which one matters more? How is one affecting the other? It's brilliant. Something that does that with spiritualism, and I think is well overdue. I'd like to make a game. I've talked to my wife about this. I don't have the venture capital but I'd love to make a game about a kid from a youth group getting on a bus to go to an anti-gay protest. Some 15-year-old, because everybody else in his youth group's doing it, getting up early in the morning, getting in the 15-passenger van to stand and hold a little sign across the street and about the things he learns that day, and why he's there and what he thinks and what he believes and what he feels in the course of that process.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
I don't think anyone would buy that though, and that becomes the problem. I don't want to make it to sell. I want to make it so people can play it, but a company has most of the time has to try to make money. I think that's why they're afraid to touch this. Do I think it will happen? Yes, because the one beautiful thing about our frustrating, annoying, greedy, goofy cartoon industry is that it's also made up of artists who want to create beautiful things, and every now and then they break through and do. So yeah, I think it's going to happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want that to happen, you can go to patreon.com/Jared Petty. Try to help some dreams come true. Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. Yeah, I could use your help, guys. Please, this is the launch, and if you're willing to help out with Pockets Full of Soup, which is trying to kind of accomplish something positive in a different way, yeah, we could really use your assistance. So please, patreon.com/Jared Petty. Thank you so much.
I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think you are an amazing human being that is very knowledgeable, and somehow you're even nicer than you are smart. So thank you for joining us. This has been
a treasure.
One of my favorite Gamescast episodes we've ever done. So thank you for that. Obviously, thank you guys. Kevin, thank you for being Kevin. And thank you for being you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I love you. We'll see you next week.